All right, we should be live streaming now. Yes, it says we
being in the right industry at just the
okay,
right time.
and I'll turn that off,
Business analysts is projected to grow at a very impressive 14%.
even though it's true.
The fastest way to differentiate.
There we go. All right, so 8 o'clock on the dot for those who are tuned in via LinkedIn or could be YouTube, any of those channels. There is a slight delay, so please be aware that when we go into the Q&A, I will have to, kind of look, and there might be a slight delay. But for those who are using live channels, please put in your questions there. If we don't get to answer them in the session, then I can answer them afterwards. So firstly, I want to welcome you. I'm so excited about this stuff. Oh my gosh. It's been a really busy 6 months exploring with AI. There's a lot that has changed in terms of the capabilities of AI. It has grown quite tremendously over the last 6 months. But it also has its limitations, and those haven't improved over time. So let's get started. And like I said, please let me know if you have any questions, just pop it into the chat. So I'm sure a lot of people know, but for those who don't, my name's Deirdre Caren. It's nearly 7 years now since I started my business, so I feel very legit, if you want to call it that. I feel grown up now. And so I started Agora Insights. I help business analysts and business architects achieve their learning goals. We have now over 11,000 learners from around the world, over 90 countries, and we do both corporates and, face-to-face and students from all types and wherever they are. One thing is consistent is that business analysts and business architects mostly have the same problem, doesn't matter where they are, and they typically have to deal with the same challenges in projects. And so I do think AI is going to help a little bit with improving that. Okay, so that's 2 minutes. All right, what are we covering today? So gone through some welcome and introductions. The key learnings about AI, I'm going to keep this short, but I'll come back to this because there's quite a bit that I have to demonstrate so that you can really understand what I mean. We'll look at your bots, your ECBA, CCBA and CBAP, and then we'll look at access, the free version versus kind of if you want to join any of the other versions versus the rules of use and that type of thing. So we'll cover all of that in the session, and then there should be another 15 minutes for FAQs. If there aren't a lot of questions, we'll end earlier. But if there are a lot of questions, then hopefully I can get through them. Now, if you look here, so for those who haven't been on our site before, please go to agorainsights.com. All the materials that I will be discussing are on our site. Some of them are free that you can download. There's nothing, but to get the links, you'll have to go to our site to get the links. So nothing is going to be shared within the live session. It's quite hard to do that, but you can find everything that I'm discussing on our site. So please make use of that. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to just quickly go over some of the things that I've observed over the last 6 months. I love AI. It's really my assistant at the moment. It does kind of forget things the next day. And so it's been quite a journey, and it does frustrate me quite a lot as well. But here's some tips. And as I mentioned, it is growing and changing. AI is not going to allow you to have conversations and think broadly. It will, but you will get an output that is horrible. you have to think of a bot as a very narrow-minded individual, and it can only have a conversation around a very specific thing. And this is just because often as humans, I suppose, we talk about a lot of things and we kind of link things that potentially don't even align. And so you really have to try draw your thinking into a very narrow framework. And I'll go into this picture in a minute. You have to teach it. The whole point with the bots is to, and I do shout at the bot sometimes, because after the third or fourth attempt of doing something, I use the term ugh, and it seems to work. But you do have to teach it. So you have to say when it's done something right, and you have to say when it's done something wrong. And often it isn't right. So we talk about, as BAs, I'm going to put on that persona today, as BAs, we talk about validating and verifying our information. And so what your bot is doing is it's got information, but you kind of the boss, and you have to validate that what that employee of yours is doing actually is the correct thing. Now, although it's getting better and better, it's still not quite there. It does go off on these weird tangents. And, you can train it as much as you want, but it does do that. You have to know what you're asking it to do. All right. So everything for it to work well for you is about the prompts. So what are you being prompted to do? And so when you are prompted, you need to understand, or when you write, this is what I want, you need to structure it really well. And so for our bots, everything's going to be about business analysis, which could include the BABA, it could include various other things. But the bot has been told that its only purpose is to really help business analysts get certified. So we kept it very narrow. And so it's hopefully going to keep the rules going. But yes, it does go off. One thing I really, I discovered this by accident, but if you write your prompts like a user story, very concise with an outcome, it actually performs much better. It was so weird because you could give it an instruction. You could say, I'm looking for this. But if you say, I want to understand how I will be questioned in chapter 1.2 of the BABOK guide so that I'm ready to pass my exam, you're going to get a much better output. So although the way that these bots have been designed now caters for that, it's still good for you to put in the right information as well. It is improving rapidly. So what I'm telling you, so when I did the first webinar on this, which was on requirements, approximately, I don't know, must have been 6 months ago. What you have today is way different, way different. I don't think that a lot of people realize how much growth and how much speed has come into this growth over such a short period of time. So it's getting better, but you need to also know how to communicate with it effectively in order to get what you want out of it. But don't think it's going away. It's definitely not going away. So for those who are around in the 90s, when everyone was like, what's the interweb? This is absolutely a game changer, and you will be using it in the future. How your business adopts it or when they adopt it is going to be different, but it's a game changer. So don't overlook AI. And it's not because you have to be a programmer. If you are, kudos to you, but it's because you have to understand how you're going to get information much faster than you ever have before, which is what this triangle is about. As BAs and as BARCs, we talk about how we are the conduit of information. So when we're working on projects or any of those type of things, we are taking information from kind of data level and we're putting it together and packaging it for particular people, and we are providing knowledge to the organization. And remember, knowledge, you're not going to get that from the bots. Knowledge is around us having the right information streamlined at the right time so that businesses can make decisions. And so we will absolutely still be working in this area. However, your bot is here. But your instructions to your bot have to be very, very pointed. And then this information that you're gathering, you might have to have several chats with your bot in order to be able to package it all together to create some kind of knowledge base or knowledge brief, but a knowledge set to work with. Okay. Now, good news, this is free to use for anybody. What I have done is I've placed it so you can either have a free preview, you'll get the link, you'll get some free information that you can use, and you are welcome to use whatever information we provide on our site, and I encourage that. Remember, things are owned by different people. So I'm not encouraging anyone to put in any information outside of what we offer in our course. What this means is if you are not enrolled in a course, that's okay. You'll get a free version of your BABOK summary, as we have done for the last 3-4 years, maybe longer. If you are enrolled in any of the courses, you can use the additional materials that we provide. And this is because the bot actually allows you to upload information. So I encourage that because it makes sense. But any other references, I do not encourage you to use it because obviously somebody else owns that IP. And just like with us, we own the IP here in the courses, and we have some rules around using it. So make sure that you go onto our site, copy the link, read through the things, and use the material freely. All right, now you have two options with your bot. The first one is to use what I would call almost like a pro option. And this pro option is something like, well, we're using Anthropic. Yeah, might not always pronounce the names correctly. But this is really an advanced AI, and the AI itself requires access. So you have to pay subscription for that. It actually is so you would go to po.com and I'll show you where to get a hold of them as well. But it actually is a really good resource. I've used heaps. I'm always open to hearing more information around what is available out there. But this is really good. If you want to use the free version, we use, again, Anthropic, so we're using, just forgot the name, Claude. So very similar to ChatGPT 3.5. I would say slightly better, which is why I chose that option. So completely free, you can use it, and you won't need to subscribe to Po or any of those options. But it depends what kind of output. So I would say if you're looking to just study BABOK and keep your prices down and that kind of thing, then you could go for the free bot. It probably would do what you need it to do. However, it's not going to always be correct. It's not going to give you necessarily the depth of information you require. If you want to really use this in a not only learning, but also kind of practicing environment, I would suggest you go for that. We don't get anything from it. This is a free service from us, but you will have to choose how the bot performs. That's on you. All right, so as I mentioned, you've got materials. So let's go through some steps. Okay, I'm going to play. So when you go onto the site that I just showed you where you would get the link from, when you go onto the site, you would choose which bot, by the way. So there are differences between a CBAP bot, because of the learning objectives, versus ECBA and CCBA. So make sure you're using the right bot, because your CBAP bot is going to ask you questions that are more related to your exam and more complex level questions. So today I'm going to show you the CBAP. This is using Claude 2, 100K. You have the ability to upload documents. As I mentioned in the beginning, you can upload the documents that are in our course, whether you're using the free documents or the paid documents. Those are for you to use freely as part of this. So we use Claude, and this is with Anthropic. The bot will tell you that too if you ask it. And here are the terms and conditions which I explained previously. All right, so as you can see, if you want to start a new chat, here's your button to go to. And here is an overview of just confirming that this is something you can use, but there's some rules around it. For instance, you can't try degrade the value of the bots by asking it dumb questions or confusing it. You've got to think of it as somebody who's just started class themselves. So if you look here, I've created a question that's pretty simple, right? So show me how chapter 3.4, let me just pause for a second. Show me how 3.4 Plain Business Analysis Information Management, which is the exact reference in your BABOK guide, and you should be writing questions like this, and the associated key learnings would relate to my exam. And as you can see now, the bot is actually providing you almost like a set of data. I call it an assignment. That's what I've told the bot it is. And so it'll go through your learning objectives, look at the introduction into that particular task. It'll look to understand what that task is. And then the nicest bit is this real world application. And I really like this because I thought, oh, finally, and we'll go even further. How is it relevant in the exam? So it will ask you a question that is similar. Now, it doesn't ask you the complex questions you need in CBAP, so please be aware of that. It just seems to minimize it. And then it'll provide you with an exam as well as describe the level, the taxonomy level. You don't need to know about it, but it's helpful if you want to know about it. And so you need to try do this consistently. Now, I did ask it a different question where I added information. Remember I said we've got our spreadsheet as well. I've taken some information from the spreadsheet. By the way, you can't upload spreadsheets, only Word docs or PDFs. It's now given me a much more comprehensive and in detail look, but now it's looking specifically at my learning objectives and the outputs. Again, it provides an output. You have to validate and verify this, right? And you have to tell the bot if it's done a good or bad job. It's really important. Now, your bot isn't going to talk about what you can order from a local restaurant, but it can expand on the content that has been delivered. So for instance, my question here, which it actually prompted, how can a BA determine the appropriate length of storage for business analysis information? So related to the chapter. And then it gave some guides, which I thought was really nice. So it gave this step-by-step thing of what you could do in your workplace. And then I thought, oh, let me ask some things. I'm going through digital transformation. Tell me how I could use chapter 6 to get this started. Now, sometimes if it's thinking too much, it does give you this error. You can just type in try again. And it's now structured it slightly differently. And look how it's linked what you've asked with the different areas of what's in your paper. So great stuff. It also brings in the exam because it's been programmed to do that. So, oops. Sorry. There you go. I should probably stop using my mouse. So it's giving you some real world examples. Now, I'm expecting BAs to be smart enough to be able to say when it's talking nonsense or not, but it's not trying to sell you anything. And I think that's the main thing. It's not a marketing tool. And so it's giving you this kind of structured document. Now, you can ask it to tell you more. And so it comes up with similar questions, as you can see. So after I've got an answer, you can also like it if you think that it's done a good job, but you must verify that information first. Otherwise, it thinks it's right. So now it's looking at some common challenges as a business analyst you might have if you were doing digital transformation. So really helpful. And I did go through it and I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so when we look at the knowledge base, we talk around having a good problem statement. So it's using the information that you have and really looking to understand how it relates to the knowledge base and various aspects of being a business analyst. So the next question, okay, now I want to show you this. The question that I wrote here, I think could have been way better. But because you've gone through the chat already, it kind of has already established a series of events. Now, I spoke about being very narrow around what you're doing. Now, you stand a risk when you start doing the scope creep thing from understanding chapter 1 to go into the next, that you're going to go totally off track. But I wanted to test it because obviously I'm using the kind of pro version for this. And I wanted to tie together digital transformation and creating requirements. Again, all things that are in the BABAC and all things related to the business analysis, but mention that we don't have a strategy yet. So these are what I think happens in business all the time. So what it's doing is it's helping you decide what you want to do next. Hurry up. So I've brought in BABAC just so that it doesn't kick me out, because it will if it thinks you're not asking relatable questions. And so as you can see, you're going to get this. Remember, I showed you earlier that you'll have things like it just stops if it takes too long. So now it's giving you the steps that you should take to clarify strategy, considering various aspects according to BABAC. Now, immediately I spotted this. There's no chapter 12 in BABAC. So I'm like, okay. So as you can see, although I like it, and I like what it's done, it's giving you some really good information to work with. This is where you actually have to correct it. I'm just going to speed up a little bit because this is not the correct sources. I want to show you the questions that come out of this as well, which is great. And then I asked it to, tell me why it's using BABAC chapter 12 as a reference. And so you'll see that the yes and the no just is a yes and a no, but you might want to actually give it more instructions around its performance because it learns from that performance. So as you can see, it's now realized chapter 12 is not part of the BABOK guide. So it has fixed a lot of this. This isn't correct still. So in these cases, as you can see, we've gone slightly and we've deviated from what the original question was, but you can still do it. You can still get more information and actually use it in your workplace to understand certain concepts and certain things. But it is advisable that you would go in and you would make sure that the references it refers to is correct, and correct it if it is choosing the wrong set of information. Now I've asked it for a step-by-step guide on what to do so that I can take this to my boss. And when you're using AI, it is my advice not to use actual real names or real businesses. You know, the data's out there. We can't pretend it doesn't exist. Like the cloud is there. We can't pretend it doesn't exist, and hackers could go into that. But you can decide not to put actual names and references into your thing. So I've told it, remember, look here, so that I can copy it into an Excel spreadsheet. So now it's taking the step-by-step guide and it's creating this. I don't like it when it does this, but you could convert it into a CSV or anything along those lines. So I did, and it does this quite often actually in this app, whereas when you work with ChatGPT-4, it actually pops out. It can give you an actual document, which is much easier to work with. But I just wanted something a little bit nicer. Try again, I cannot copy it in this format. So it's now redoing it. Again, I didn't want that format. I'm just going to flick further. So what I did here is I said create a table, and I created all the columns of that table with the description. So I said the step, the description, the estimated time, the status. Let's go through this. And comments. References. So a lovely little bot. Now, whether you're doing CCBA, CBAP, any of those, you'll find that they give very similar answers. It's just the level of complexity in the exam differs. So the learning outcomes differ. The ECBA bot should explain it in a little bit simpler and in more detail. Whereas CBAP, for instance, is more complex. So it'll do that a little bit more in a more complicated way. So now you can see, you can copy this and you can upload it. This is one of the good practices. I have made the mistake of trying to navigate through my bots and find stuff. Don't advise it. So best, if you like something, have a Word or Excel document close by so that you can copy it and find it. You can also share this. So if you're learning something and you really like it, you can share it with somebody else and they can see it and use it if they want to do this. So I asked how will I be asked something like this in my exam? And so now it's bringing back the key learnings. So it has gone back to what we originally were discussing. Not quite exactly, but it's taking you through those steps. So you can ask it to create an assignment. You can ask it to create exam quiz questions. You can ask it to provide a real world scenario, you can ask it to show you how it works, in a particular case. So you can use things like that. You can ask it to create use cases, user stories, requirements, all of that, because that's all part of what we do in BAPOC. So here, you're now getting that whole kind of case to work with, and it will show you where you'd find that in BAPOC, what the relationships are, etc. Super helpful stuff. As you can see, I liked what it did there, and that means it's now programming itself to remember that that's a good outcome. So it increases the scores of getting that again. And this is why I say, for those using the bots, you need to read some of these conditions, because you don't want to click on bad when it actually is a good, but you also don't want to click on like when it's a bad one. So your part is also teaching it. So now it's looking at the scenario-based question. It's defining why the answer is what the answer is. And yeah, looking at how the different phases work. So then I asked it a slightly broader question. Let me just get in here. And we're going to wrap this up now. So it's actually given me a set of things that I should do when I want to, apply some of these to work. So this is where you'd find it in your BAPOC, and then to justify your project, etc. Now, agile methodologies, that's in chapter 11, but it does kind of get mixed up a little bit between what occurs in the chapter 11. The other thing it really struggles with in chapter 3, we talk about adaptive and predictive responses, but because chapter 11 talks about agile, it often brings in those terms almost the same, really. Okay, so that is a bit of an outline of what your bot's up to and how it's performing. Okay, next. So I think it's great. If you like it, please follow it. Please share it with people, get them to use it themselves, build cases, tell us what you've found. It all helps serve the community practice. Now, as I mentioned previously, so I'm just going to show you the free version. I asked this bot to tell me about ordering food. It told me that it's not related to the CCBA exam, but you can term it loosely as in maintaining requirements, blah, blah, blah. So it then kind of took that and went into the requirements. But so it has been told to behave in a certain way, which I think is really good. So it's not going to go and deviate outside. Well, touch wood, right? But it's not designed to deviate outside of that space. So for those, I mentioned the difference between the free and the subscription. It's really about performance. So it depends on how much you want to use. Now, Po has got lots of different options, lots. So you can get one subscription and use multiple bots. Really, really helpful thing to use. And of course, I would advise that you choose one related to what you're studying because of the learning objectives and because of the way that it's been tailored to respond to your questions. So you'll just go into one of the courses, you'll click on a free preview for those who aren't learners, and for those who are learners, you'll just log in, and under the orientation section, you will find it. And then you would have to you'd have to pick which one. So this subscription one, you do get 3 free goes. I don't know if that's a month or a day. I'm not sure, to be honest. But again, you can use either of those options. As I mentioned, we don't make any money out of the bots. We will look at ways in which to incorporate it in a much deeper way in the future. Haven't even got there yet, but the idea is really just to make sure that we are doing what we need to do in terms of getting you ready to do your exam and using it just to help with your daily BA activities. So it becomes a little bit of an assistant. I suppose an assistant that only talks about one thing, and that's business analysis. All right. So I suppose we can open up now to any questions anybody might have, or just comments on what do you think how it's performing. Okay, so here I see some comments. Let me just go into this. Will a copy of this presentation be available? Yes, a copy of, sorry, I have to pause it. Yes, a copy will be available. But this is just via, so you can go and watch it. So if you're talking about, am I going to give you the actual presentation? We provide the video that you can go back and watch, as well as if you're on LinkedIn, which you can then just rewatch it several times. It just streams on the platform. Again, go onto the site, go look at everything. Everything's there. You can just use it. So hopefully that helps. I'm sorry, I just have to quickly go all the way to the end of this. Okay. Are there other questions? Because I don't see any other ones. That seems to be the only ones. I don't know if it's my live network that is doing it or not. Karen, no questions for you, Valerie? Michael? Okay, so any further questions that you might have, I'll pop those questions into the text. As I mentioned, you can watch this now over and over again, so you can go back and look at it. Please give me feedback. I really would appreciate it. Trying to do the right thing here for those learning in business analysis. And yeah, great tool to use and so forth. Oh, there we go. The chat's there. I didn't actually see it. Will there be a CBA bot? There might be a business analysis, a business architecture bot. We do have the course at the moment. So if you have a look on our site, we have business architecture using AI. We obviously have to make sure that we're not sharing any guild information. So it will be our study guides and our material that we've developed. And so at the moment, we're just going through that process of determining what we can or cannot do. However, as I mentioned, we do have a guild accredited course called Business Architecture Using AI, which talks about some of those things. So yes, and obviously, if you're a BArch yourself, you have the rights to use the material for your personal use. So you can do that, maybe make a few fictional case studies. Thanks, Karen, that's great. And Thanks, Michael, for your comments. I really do appreciate. Please, like I said, try it out. I'd love to see what everybody thinks about it. It's taken quite some time to train it and use it. But I do think it'll be very, very helpful for many people out there. Please keep in touch if you want to know any progress. Like I said, we will be doing more with this. Our two main streams to go forward will be the requirements. There's quite a few chapter events that I'll be doing in October around requirements specifically, and AI. And, you know, there's also stuff with the BARC using AI components. So there's a lot more coming. Just got to navigate through the process correctly. Okay. All right. Aloha. Aloha. I don't pronounce that correctly. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I think that's it for now. I know some people are joining me, but do go have a look at the site. Happy to see you all and happy learning. Let me end our chat today. Somehow.